was a typo, and I'm like, welcome to Comics League. I'm Jared, and today we are discussing Justice Society World War II. So first off, it should be, hopefully the other guys are going to join us, but if not, we'll have some fun. So we are discussing, again, Justice Society World War II, otherwise known, and what's up, Cameron? Otherwise known as basically a Wonder Woman movie in this. So this is pretty much a Wonder Woman movie. It was Sam, I love Golden Age heroes, so had to be here for this. Thanks for the shining light of love, JSA. Of course, absolutely, because this movie is freaking dope. So, and I always, Sam, and what's interesting about that is that a lot of the times when I cite how these characters should be, oftentimes I do use their Golden Age, like, iterations, because here's the thing, everything that comes after this, whether or not it be modern age, silver age, bronze age, what have you, are based on those golden age versions. So you have to like homage that portion in some way. Plus, if these characters were not popular or were not successful in the golden age, they would not exist today. There are plenty of comic book characters that have existed in the golden age that don't exist anymore. So you kind of need that. So, going on to Justice Society, so it's kind of interesting about this. So when the movie came out, I bought it on Apple, and I popped it in and watched it. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. So I didn't know, because originally, all right, so in where we are in the timeline is Man of Tomorrow has just happened. In other words, Man of Tomorrow has just come out. The movie's out. So I watched it. I liked it. It was pretty cool. So I watched this. Now, here's the thing. Up until this point, I didn't know that they were doing another shared continuity with the animated movies, because I thought they were done with that when you get to, like, Dark Apocalypse War. By the way, Sandman says, Ostrander and Mandrake Spectre run in the 90s were phenomenal. New take on the character, as was Sandman's Mystery Theater. I'll check that out. Thank you. So, I didn't know that this was in continuity. Then I see Superman literally show up, same Superman in this. So I'm like, okay, so this is another continuity. Now, what's cool about this movie, so it opens up with Brainiac attacking Superman as usual, and the Flash comes in to help. Brainiac fires a kryptonite bullet at Superman, and the Flash runs after it. But the cool part about this is the Flash seemingly goes back in time to World War II. I say seemingly because there's a bit of a mystery in this movie and how things end up, which I think this movie does fantastically in terms of like how they like act for this. So then, so he shows up in the middle of World War II. Now, at the same time, the Allies to counter the German army. I'm saying that because I don't know how. I don't know if I could say the actual word on YouTube. So to counter the leader of the German army, the U.S. creates like a team of superheroes, which is like Jay Garrick, the Flash. Yeah, exactly. And then you had like Hawkman. You had Dr. I should have it right here. Hourman. And yeah. So Iron Man, Jay Garrick, Hourman, Jay Garrick, Hawkman, Black Canary, and certain DC character that deserves more love for this character. It's a character that deserves more love, but doesn't get that much love. So I present to you Justice Society's Wonder Woman, which I gotta say, by the way, voiced by the same voice actress, Stana, Katic, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, that voiced Talia al Ghul in the Arkham games. And I need to say, I really liked when you get to hear her voice. And this was kind of a trend started by Gal Gadot when she was cast as Wonder Woman, is that Wonder Woman will have an accent, which I think makes a lot more sense than her having an American accent, despite being from roughly the Mediterranean is where Themyscira, I believe, is. It's either Themyscira or Greek. So I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make sense for her to have a Greek accent, an American accent, yes, and Flash teaching a Golden Age Flash. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, she was very very brutal, and I'm like, okay, this is dope because when we first see her and the Germans are rolling through this town, all of a sudden she like jumps down, she emerges from the smoke, and she just tears them apart. And I'm watching this, and here's why I will always defend the Tomorrowverse. And by Tomorrowverse, I mean like all the Just Society movies and all that stuff. The reason why I love these movies, particularly as someone, because I've been very open about this, Sandman. Wonder Woman is my #1 favorite superhero. And to see her shown with respect in this like run of movies, even though she's not being treated with respect in the comics or in this, yeah, it reminds me of Kingdom Come Wonder Woman. Yeah, a little bit. So to see her being treated with like reverence and respect in these movies was one of the things that I'm watching this and I'm like, yeah, based upon the fact that in the previous movie, she kind of got turned into a mouthpiece to prop up Lois. I like this one. So this is the Flash's first like exposure to superheroes working together, because previously, as you know, in the main timeline, or as we will soon discover, that everything's not as it appears, the superheroes have never like united before, as far as the Flash knows. So at first he's like, why didn't I ever hear about like a Justice Society? Yeah, and yes, it's called the Justice Society and everything like that. So they're like, why haven't I heard of the Justice Society before? This is really odd. And we meet, so at the same time, we meet Perpetual Stick in the Mud, Steve Trevor, and he's in a plane that's about to crash. And as we saw, as Salmon brought up, Barry teaches Jay how to like do the whole hand like tornado things, and they let the plane land. And then later on at the base, they meet Shakespeare, a certain reporter that we will soon discover some stuff about, particularly if you're a Crisis fan. And so what they discover is, so the way that this kind of worked is the JSA would go in, fight the Germans, and get out. And then Shakespeare would write it up like, oh, when American forces drove the Germans out of this town in Europe, it's all good. It's all good. Or definitely not an Amazon or a dude with wings hanging out. So that's kind of how they do it. And they have a subplot where Steve Trevor keeps asking Wonder Woman to marry him. And he's kind of a little bit of a stalker. Even Flash calls him out for that. And I'm like, there you go. So they show up at this castle where they discover Dr. Fate because they need a code breaker. They also discover so Shakespeare is shot. And all right, so what they discover is Barry didn't go back in time. He crossed over to Earth 2. Yes, he crossed over to an alternate continuity, which I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually really cool how they do that. And they kind of play off the mystery because Shakespeare is Clark Kent. And it's like, oh, wow. And then he's given like the Superman suit and all that. And they discover that the codebreaker is Dr. Fate. And Fate basically tells them, okay, so we brought you here for a reason. There's like some calamity that's about to happen. Sandman says, I like that Hawkman can keep up with Wonder Woman, and Dr. Fate should have had more to do, just my opinion. Okay, yeah, I gotta see that. Yes, Hawkman was a badass in this. And yeah, Dr. Fate was more of a glorified cameo, which I see what you're saying because he is kind of one of the OG JSA members. So he should have been given more to do because he shows up, cracks a code, and then just dips. So I'm like, wait. This is a little something here. And we'll probably see him later. So they leave the castle and they free all the hostages that the Germans had. And so they go into a submarine and then discover that they essentially discover the Atlanteans. But they do have this great scene. So the Germans drop in like depth charges, which are like exploding barrels to like stop a submarine. So Wonder Woman loads up in the torpedo tubes, launches out, and is literally just punching and like destroying these barrels. And then there's like so much more in front of her, way more than she can do. And then the Atlanteans show up. Yes, we bring in the Atlanteans. And they escort the sub to their base. Yes, that scene was epic. Where I just love, she just climbs in, boosh, and then I love where they're like, where's Wonder Woman? And all of a sudden they hear the torpedo like fire, and they're like, oh, okay, I know what they're doing. You also kind of saw what's kind of cool is like Sandman said, Barry teaching Jay how to like use static electricity to start up the engine. There's a lot of really cool stuff in this. So they show up and meet Aquaman, voiced by Spartacus himself, Liam McIntyre. And let's see, do I have that clip from Spartacus? It played in the beginning of my... Okay, here we go. This essentially who voices Aquaman.
Now, we will become an army.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see who's playing you, dude. I love that. And so we discover there's this like attendant of Aquaman who's kind of like really shady. It turns out Aquaman has allied himself with the Germans. What we discover through this movie and then later on is that he's being manipulated by Psycho Pirate. Now, you may be wondering, what is Psycho Pirate's powers? What he basically does is he can manipulate your emotions. That's why he kind of leans into Aquaman and goes, you're afraid because they are going to destroy your people. So you must you must ally with the Germans because they will bring order. Now it's kind of like that. And then again, now they flip the script a little bit. And now Jay teaches Barry, I almost said Wally, how to like phase through the ground and goes right down. And then so they escape. They get on the submarine. At the same time, Wonder Woman and Flash go to fight Aquaman, who's about to release the Kraken. And I like how they're in this like suit that's like an Atlantean environmental suit, but it's like a bubble suit apparently. And I felt that was kind of cool how they do that, because I've always wondered, okay, so how would that work? Because it looks like in this, Aquaman is the only Atlantean that can breathe underwater. So that's interesting how that kind of works out. And then the Atlanteans invade California as the Kraken also attacks. The JSA shows up and starts to wreck shop. I will say this movie is bloody as hell in the best way possible. Like we said earlier with like Wonder Woman, but oh god, it's like you have like you have Hawkman whacking stuff with his mace, Black Canary screaming up a storm, to the point where she like causes the road to like get blasted backwards. And I'm watching this and I'm like, why don't you do that all the time? But it's one of those really interesting things that they do. And then so Aquaman shows up, and then and then Wonder Woman and him have like a Man of Steel style like slug match where they're like punching each other through buildings. Then I love where, yes, this movie is not for little kiddies. Exactly, Sandman. So I love, one of my favorite scenes from this is when, Steve goes and tries to, so Diana's knocked down. Steve goes to try and save her because he's sticking in the mud and is probably going to get killed. And Aquaman goes to stab the trident. Then all of a sudden you hear like a clang, and there's Wonder Woman holding her like gauntlet, holding the trident back. And then she knocks Aquaman back, grabs the trident and breaks it in half. And that like snaps Aquaman out of Psycho Pirate's control. Unfortunately, Psycho Pirate stabs Steve Trevor in the back, literally, and essentially kills him. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm fine with that. I do not like Steve Trevor. And then Psycho Pirate brings up about how the Germans have sent a bunch of bombers, and they're going to level the western coast. You're not going to be able to like survive this, guys. Then the planes start exploding over and over and over again. Who should show up but Shakespeare, dressed as Superman, Golden Age era, jumping from plane to plane, destroying them. And he doesn't fly. He will in later movies, so I assume that like he learned how to do that. But it is kind of cool making use of the leaping tall buildings in a single bound, because for those of you that somehow don't know, back then Superman couldn't fly. It was the radio show, if I remember correctly, that did the flying and Kryptonian. And then Sandman says, at least he died a hero and shows what a coward villain Psycho Pirate was back then. True. I'll give you that. At least he died a hero. And so he shows up and drops down. And what I like about this, so Wonder Woman back at the castle was basically telling Shakespeare, or Clark in this case, that you can't sit on the sidelines anymore. If you sit on the sidelines, you're no better than the Germans. And then essentially Superman lands and goes, and he basically repeats what Wonder Woman had said to him. And if you know the movies later, you kind of know how like that's actually kind of cool with that. That's kind of a sort of like it's sort of I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. It's going to be called back to, in other words. And yeah, keeping Superman with the Hulk like leaves was a nice touch. Yeah, exactly. Because all of this is like a love story to Golden Age, and I think Jeremy Adams and Fats Martin did a fantastic job with this. And then so what happened? It was in New York. It wasn't California. No, okay. So what's cool is that before he dies, Steve proposes to Diana and she accepts and stuff. And then he dies. And then the advisor, Psycho Pirate, escapes. We'll see him later in Crisis. And hey, what's up, Sean Franklin? And so Barry says goodbye to the JSA. Wonder Woman gives him the ring, and it basically says, don't take advantage of all the time you have. And I really dig that. So he zooms off, and with the help of Jay Garrick is able to travel back to his Earth. So he shows up. So the way they time this is back in the present on Barry's Earth, the bullet is heading towards Superman. Flash runs, almost catches it, and then gets sent into Earth 2. And then Barry is returning. I know time travel is confusing, but just bear with me. And he phases back in, grabs the bullet, and throws it at Brainiac, killing him. So superheroes kill in this universe. Wow, isn't that interesting? And this is where Barry basically brings it to Superman. Hey, there's going to be threats like Brainiac all the time now. How about we team up and create almost a league? There you go. There's the Justice League. And they also hint that when Psycho Pirate goes, you and your little league are done for. And I'm like, oh, okay, there you go. And then Barry zooms off. And then he's having a picnic with Iris and proposes to her. And then she says yes. And that's basically the way the movie ends. Now, I want to bring this up. This was originally supposed to go. Was it the New 52 or after that? I can't remember. New 52 essentially was the previous continuity, which was the DC AMU, like Justice League War, Throne of Atlantis, and all that stuff. So what happened with that is that you get the Flashpoint movie, which led to Justice League War, Throne of Atlantis, and stuff. Then couple years later, you get Dark Apocalypse War, where to undo everything, Barry goes back in time and does another Flashpoint thing. We won't discover what that is until Crisis. But so what you discuss, essentially it resets the universe again, which leads to this continuity where everyone's a little. I know it seems like it's the New 52 universe because everyone's younger, but it's kind of not. But I see what you're kind of going for that. Now, all right, so what's kind of interesting about this is this was the original plan was there were supposed to be more Wonder Woman movies. Originally, by the way, this was called Wonder Woman and the Justice Society of America. Yeah, it's too much time travel. This is DC, but still. This movie was originally supposed to be called Wonder Woman and the Justice Society, and was supposed to be a series of Wonder Woman movies, essentially showing what happened after this movie up until let's say Crisis. Obviously, what had happened, I believe the story goes, is that when Gunn came in, this is not, Gunn did not make the call to like cancel it early. It's just what happened is I think the way this works is he came in, they didn't know at the time what he was going to do, and they just decided to like end it. And that's how you get like later on, how you get like War World and then the Crisis movies is that supposed to like end that continuity. So yeah, it was supposed to be like a Wonder Woman movie, which I still hope that eventually we get, because again, like I've said before many times in the channel, Wonder Woman's one of those characters that deserves more than she gets. Because here's the thing. Here's the interesting thing about Wonder Woman. She is like, according to DC, I'm going by with the way DC markets her. She is like the third most important superhero at DC. She is the most iconic female superhero at DC. And yet the problem is they don't treat her like that. When they give her a comic series like they have now, they put writers that either don't like the character like we have now, or don't know the character like we have now, or would rather be writing other characters like we have now. And when she still hasn't gotten an animated series, even though she needs one. And the most like, let me put it this way, yes, she is part of the Trinity. She should, even though the Trinity is kind of a more recent concept that is kind of meaningless, but beyond that, I see what you're saying. But it's like see, the thing is, what people don't know is that Wonder Woman was not as like, I mean, she was renowned, but she got a massive popularity boost with that first Gal Gadot movie. And that was what like really mainstreamized Wonder Woman. And after that, that's when you had like a major popularity boost with the comics and such. But then what happens is, through years of neglect, this is when you get to where we are now with Wonder Woman, where she's not even that much of a high seller, and she's not even that much of a priority. Like, I've talked to a former editor at DC, and what she had told me is they use Wonder Woman to train the junior editors on how to edit a book before they move them onto higher priority books. That's what Wonder Woman is. So, which kind of makes me think, if I become a junior editor at DC, I could edit Wonder Woman. Oh boy, that would be fun. And so that's kind of where you get there, where she's supposed to be this really major character, but she's not given the proper time. And what's kind of funny is that when I had Sam Liu on my channel, one of the things I talked to him about is Wonder Woman, because he directed and worked on like the Wonder Woman Bloodlines movie. And what he told me is that so the purpose of that movie was to give Wonder Woman like her hush moment where they introduce her to the world, because according to him, at least the way the general audience sees it, Wonder Woman does not have any good stories or villains. We know that's not true, but in terms of the general audience, that's kind of the way they see it, which they shouldn't. By the way, yeah, now it's about Adam Hughes and Archer and variant covers for her. She is beautiful, yes, but she's so much more than that. Or Jenny Friesen. Yeah, all those are great. Don't get me wrong. It's just a cover can only take you so far. Art can only take you so far, because here's the thing. As much as I loathe with an ever-burning passion the Tom King Wonder Woman run, the art is spectacular by Semper. And like Liam Sharp. Is it Liam Sharp? No. I forget the other person on this, or even Belina Ortega. The art's great, and the covers are awesome. It's just when the content is crap, that's when you really like. That's when you get that. That's the problem. That's a challenge with comics. Is that, yeah, you can have like great writing, and you need both to really be like in tune, because if you have great art but crappy writing, then it becomes like an art book and not a comic book. If you have great writing but crappy art, no one's going to want to read the book. So you kind of need to have both in there. So you need to prioritize the character. Yes, it kind of was Kirby, a Wonder Woman movie. Tom King's sole purpose seeks to destroy everything we love about these heroes can't stand. Then Sandman, you came to the right channel, because trust me. And yes, I started the hashtag to get him thrown off the Wonder Woman book. So if you guys want him off, blast that hashtag. I don't know why my camera went out of focus. But the thing with that, it's like, I understand why they put King on Wonder Woman originally. Here's what I want to say. And then I'll get back to the JSA movie, I swear. The thing about it is, like, he is a high-profile writer. Some would say unjustifiably. But the point is, he is a name in the comic book industry. I understand why they would want to put him on there, because they figured it would lead to a popularity boost. What they didn't count on is Tom Kinging Wonder Woman, which leads to a daughter that makes no sense, an overemphasis on Steve Trevor and the villains, something that he said he would never do. And so either he's a liar or a hypocrite. And like him making Wonder Woman a side character in her own book. And he straight up said, like, and he brought in Detective Chimp. He basically said, this is like my pitch for like a Detective Chimp book. And I'm like, stop using Wonder Woman to pitch other books you'd rather be writing. And then Kirby says, I don't know who Tom King is. And with your guys' reaction and stuff, I'll skip up episode. Yeah, let me put it this way. If he wrote Heroes in Crisis, Kirby, that's about all you need to know of who this man is. And he's one of the writers on the Lantern show. So I'm like, as a Green Lantern fan, as you can see, I'm like, oh no. But anyway, back to Just Society. So here's the thing. It's like, at least if you gave her like a series of movies like you were supposed to with Justice Society, and it showed like her being the leader of the Justice Society, because Wonder Woman is immortal in this universe, you could see her like growing. And Superman is, they say he's not immortal, but here's the thing. With the sun, as long as that sun remains yellow, Superman is immortal. So I don't know where they're getting that from. But it's like, when you get to, so she's immortal, you could have seen her like going throughout like different eras in history, maybe transitioning from the Society to the Justice League, and then you could lead into Crisis. You could also see her fall in love with Superman, because as we know from Crisis on Infinite Earths, she and Shakespeare and Earth 2 Superman get together. And what's hilarious about that is that in Crisis, they literally, for the marketing for the movie, they label Earth 1 Superman, the one from Man of Tomorrow, as Superboy. And the funny part is, by implication, you're kind of saying that you don't become Superman until you date an Amazon, which I'm thinking that, and I'm like, okay, I kind of see where you're going with that. That's really funny, and I'll take it. I'll definitely take it. But so what other questions do you guys have regarding JSA, the Tomorrowverse, Wonder Woman in general in terms of characters? My Soundwave figure from Park came, and Holy Matchmake's the best figure I had. That is cool. That's definitely dope. So what other quick questions do you guys have regarding Wonder Woman, DC, how DC treats Wonder Woman? What you guys would like, how you guys would have done a Wonder Woman animated movie? Let's see. Tell me what you got, guys. And while we do that, let me do this. Okay, here we go. And see, how do you feel about the new Jeff Lemire JSA? I haven't read it yet. See, I just recently got into JSA because, if you become a member, you will be seeing this because I'm going to record after this. So every month I go to my comic book store and get like a bunch of graphic novels and comics, and then I review them on the thing. So I got the first volume of Jeff Johns' Justice Society, and everyone told me I need to read that. And Simon says, how do you feel about Absolute Wonder Woman? Okay, so let me tell you this. Absolute Wonder Woman has become my comfort Wonder Woman book, because that is like one of the best Wonder Woman books I've read recently, particularly compared to the Tom King book, to the point where I have now fully dropped the Tom King book, so that because I now have Absolute Wonder Woman, which is more Wonder Woman than Tom King's what Wonder Woman is. And what's kind of cool, every time I go to my store, it's become like an impulse buy, where every time there's a new cover, I have to buy it. Like for issue 4, for instance, I got the standard Sherman cover, but when I was there, they also had like a bunch of the other like second printing covers. So I got this one by lyrics, which I dig this one so much. And this one by March, Gilliam March, right there. I really dig. I really dig this. And so Salmon says the only Absolute book I'm reading. You should give more of them a chance. I think that Absolute is doing fantastic with like a lot of the stuff it's doing. I gotta be honest with that. Kirby says, how do you feel about the Wonder Woman game being screwed over? This is WB. They screw over everything to the point where I might as well just have this clip on repeat.
Yeah, second Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I might as well just hit. Yeah, there was going to be a Wonder Woman game. No, there's a Wonder Woman game supposedly in development. But here's the thing, Sam. When they announced it 3 years ago, we still haven't seen anything yet besides some leaks. So, what? Pride Tom says, I loved Injustice. It was my first comic, but it messed up how people view Wonder Woman for a long time, at least. The one you don't read. Yeah, okay. And Pride Tom, I'm going to leave this up for a second. I agree with you on that. It did screw up the way people see Wonder Woman and Superman. I personally did not enjoy Injustice, but hey, more power to you, brother. But yes, here's why that doesn't make sense. So they did a origin story issue for Wonder Woman to explain why she's like this warrior princess thing. And so what's funny about this, so you read it, it's basically Steve Trevor crash lands. He brings Diana to man's world. Turns out he's a German spy in World War II. And then, let's see, what is this? Okay, so he's a German spy in World War II. He kills an Amazon. Wonder Woman kills him. And then that's why she doesn't trust man, but then she goes and serves on the JSA and JLA, literally the best man she's known. So, what? And Sam says, I don't like Batman. Superman seemed mad to me, hoping Flash is good. Okay, fair enough. That's good. Do you think Sensation Comics would make a comeback in the main continuity? I think it should, NJ. Let me put it that way. I think it should, because here's the thing. Superman has Superman in Action Comics, and Action Comics is the book that like talks more about, yes, it has Superman stories in it, but it also expands and talks about Superman's world. Batman has the Batman book and Detective Comics, which does a similar thing. I think Wonder Woman needs that, because if you give her a separate book that has her world in it, that does tell stories about Diana, but also tells like Wonder Girl stories, Amazon stories, then what you do is that you make people more aware of her world. Because if you don't do that, no one's gonna, because there's only so much a writer just writing the Diana book can do with their script, and then also have to expand on the world and stuff. Some writers have done it better than others, but I think Diana, particularly a character like Diana, which I would argue her world is a little bit more obscure. It shouldn't be, but it kind of is. I think that I kind of do that. Yes, George Perez Wonder Woman is god tier. Max says, what would you think of Nicole Perlman writing a Wonder Woman reboot with Angelina Jolie as director and as Julia Capitelis? I could see Angelina Jolie playing Vanessa. That would be really dope. I would love that. But yes, George Perez is the run where I'm like, that is what everyone should base Wonder Woman on. Because here's what that does. She doesn't really have a love interest in that book, so you get to focus more on Diana. It significantly expands her world. Treats everything with respect. The art is superb. I mean, it was George Perez. That should be everything you need to know. And Wonder Woman was, again, treated with respect. Fortunately, not a lot of writers do that. But there you go. I got the George Perez one. I need to read it. You read it. Trust me. It will. That is like the definitive run. Not the Azzarello run. Not the Gail Simone run, even though I have the Omnibuy for Azzarello and Simone. They're fun on their own, but Perez is where you go to understand who Diana is. I'm waiting for them to print the other 2 issues of the Wonder Woman book of the Omnibuy, so I can get those. Agreed. Very hard for John Byrne to follow in his footsteps. Byrne is weird. I'm just going to tell you that, because he also had Superman make out with a 14-year-old girl in Generations 2. So I'm like, should he be referenced at all? Probably not. But it's one of those things there. But so let's see what else. What other Wonder Woman questions do you all have? I'm really enjoying this. Let's go. Let's go. Give me something difficult. Like, give me something good. Let's go. But yeah, it definitely read the Perez run, and that will give you a solid like God tier. It is very insulting when Tom King goes, where Tom King originally didn't want to write Wonder Woman, but he took it because when he went to George Perez's funeral, he kind of felt like George Perez was challenging him to do better. And I'm like, dude, I get that. Maybe that's the way it was in your head, but don't do that. Why do people always talk about All-Star Superman and never in continuity books about Superman? That's a good question, Pride. I don't know. It's a good book. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, maybe it's because I think that book does do a good job of putting in like one volume what Superman is as a character. I understand that. It's just, yeah, he's more than just one story. So they really should like expand and like focus on more than one story. Max says, what if Julia was like an older Lara Croft and was the one that crashed the island instead of Trevor? I wouldn't want to change the origin that much, Mac, but I do see what you're saying there. Salmon says, All-Star Superman is to Superman like Frank Miller's Return of the Dark Knight is to Batman. Yeah, it's kind of like Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, it's kind of that. It's like that one story that like really expanded on Superman. But I do agree that they need others to focus on other stories, like even Birthright I thought was pretty good. You have any of the storylines in the New 52. You have, I mean, they did do for the Man Who Has Everything. That was a good one. They adapted that in Justly Unlimited. And then you also have like Last Son. There's plenty of great Superman stories that I wish people would reference as like the definitive Superman stories, because then you make it seem like Superman only has one good story. If you only say just read All Star, that's all you need. And I'm like, no. The problem is when it comes to Superman, and Britt and I have talked about this on Super Wonder Legacy. It's the idea that like, don't forget Rebirth Superman. I'm not a fan of Rebirth Superman, but you know what? Your preferences are yours, brother. I'm kind of not a Rebirth Superman fan, but you know what? More power to you. Kingdom Come is a Dark Knight Returns version of Superman. I would say Wonder Woman Odyssey is that for Diana. It could be that. I could see that. But the thing is, here's the problem with Superman as a character. It's like a lot of writers do the same thing over and over and over again. Like, you notice how like in everything they have to reference Superman dying, because that was like the biggest Superman's biggest story is when he died. And I'm like, wait, what? Or like All-Star Superman, so you always have to reference that. It's like there are a couple of stories for Superman that you have to reference at all times, otherwise it's not seen as like the Superman or like not my Superman. And what that leads to is stalifying the character, essentially, if that's a word. If it's not, I'm making it a word. And it stales the character, in other words, because there's only so much that you can do the same thing over and over again before people are like, okay, so he's going to die in 3, 2, 1. Oh, he's dead. Okay. And then he'll come back to life in about a year. So a year later, oh, he's back. Who could have thought that was going to happen? It's like when DC announced that the Justice League was going to die in Justice League 75. And then they go, don't worry, they're coming back to life. And everyone reading the internet was like, really? So you're telling me you're not going to kill the Justice League? If only there wasn't like decades worth of like precedence for, oh yeah, so you're not going to kill so whenever you kill people, of course they're going to come back, because this is comics and no one in pop culture stays dead ever, except for the few characters. Superman 1 million was great. That was cool. I like that one. Created his own universe, just seeing all the awesome stuff he can do at full potential. Yeah. And that's my point, Sam, man. There are so many great Superman stories that I wish people would reference. It's like I got like Godfall, Sacrifice up until the Maxwell Lord death, Critical Condition, Our World's at War, Red Sun, Son of Superman, Panic in the Sky, Superman Aliens. Unchained, American Alien, there, Earth One, even. There's so many great Superman stories. What's in your Holy Grail comics for Superman and Batman? I need more to read. Okay, Holy Grail. Okay, that's a good question. That's an excellent question. Okay, so for Superman, actually, you know what? I'm going to get it. Hang on. So this is something kind of fun. So my first comic for my my Holy Grail Superman is this. Hang on, I'm going to bring this down. Is Superman Wonder Woman Power Couple by Charles Sewell. It's kind of cool because yes, this is like Superman and Wonder Woman dating, but this actually has some really great like Superman and Wonder Woman moments to the point where you could take it as like a Superman book or a Wonder Woman book, and it doesn't get into like, oh, so she's just Superman's girlfriend. No, they're both equal. Plus, you get this really dope fight between Superman, Wonder Woman, and General Zod and Feora. In other words, evil Superman, Wonder Woman. So there is that. Let me see. What else do I have here that I think would be a good one? Besides any of the Dark Knight Returns. So for Batman, you could do Deadly Duo. You could do anything from the new 52, Hush, War Games, Under the Red Hood. Black Mirror is really good. I really dig Black Mirror. Absolute Batman is really fun. Let's see. What did I pick up at my store? I didn't get anything for Batman, but particularly, partly because I get so much Batman comics recently. What about Elseworld Stories where Zeus becomes Batman? That's really good. Yes. Speeding Bullets. That's great. I love that book. Court of the Owls for Batman. Yes, exactly. Court of the Owls. Anything from the new 52, really. I would say in terms of, in terms of Batman, I'm trying to find what other stories I would recommend for Batman. Batman the Cult. The Cult is really good. Return of Bruce Wayne. That's a great one. That's like after Final Crisis. City of Madness is good. Actually, you know what I would recommend? I'm going to get something here. So DC sometimes puts these out. I'm going to take out the ones for Batman and Wonder Woman. Give me 1 second. This is the problem with having action figures on a shelf. So what DC does is it puts out these volumes. So what these are like celebrations that get like released whenever there's like a big milestone. So what they have here is Detective Comics 80 Years of Batman. And what this shows here, yes, Bernie Wrightson's art is superb. Let me put it that way. So over here, so what we have here is like 80 Years of Batman. And what this collects is, this has Detective 27, the first appearance of Batman. You get like a selection of stories that are like, that like are the foundation for the character from every era of comics, golden, silver, bronze, modern. And so I have the one for Batman. Then I also have the one for Wonder Woman. And this includes like so many of the other stories for like Wonder Woman that came out. It has the first issue of I don't think it has the first issue of the Perez run. No, it has some of the Perez run. It has some of like the original ones. It has her first story. So you could probably find these, and these really give you like a good sampling of the different characters. So now I'm going to put this back. Where did I put this up? Okay, here in the shelf. Also, anything by Grant Morrison as it relates to Batman is always like a good what's the word? A good bet, I would say. A good bet. In terms of what other books I would say would recommend for Batman particularly, I would say probably if we're talking about Batman books that like involve other characters, obviously World's Finest is a good one. You could do any Detective Comics. Actually, Rebirth Detective Comics by James Tynion is awesome, where he has like his own team of like Batwoman, Tim Drake, Stephanie Brown, Spoiler, and Clayface. That was dope. In terms, you could do Batman Ninja Turtles as well, Red Hood and the Outlaws, kind of. And for Superman, I got a great one for Superman. Hang on for 1 second here. This one is my favorite modern Superman story of all time. Oh, Warworld Saga. Anything written by Philip Kennedy Johnson is dope as hell. Anything Grant Morrison writes is great. His runs on Animal Man, especially Doom Patrol, are good. Yeah, those are great. Read their run on Action Comics for the new 52. They do a lot of like introduction for Clark and a lot of his world in the new 52 that I actually really enjoyed. But yes, Warworld Saga is absolutely badass. Superman essentially travels to Warworld to liberate it and ends up becoming a gladiator. It's essentially Gladiator Superman is what this is. So then, let's see, what else? Let's see, what else? Mongol is perfect for all soups. Yes, I got Warworld on Kindle. I got to read it. Yes, read it. Read it. Trust me, you will love it. It is superb, pun intended. There you go. Let's see. What other Superman stories I recommend? Or like, let's see. See, I want to recommend Dark Knight's. I don't know why I can't talk, but Scott Snyder's story with like the Batman who laughs. So let me put it that way. But the problem with that is, they get really crazy later in that story. So Dark Knight's. Jeez. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna put in the chat. How's this? Because for some reason I can't say it. Dark Knight's Metal. There you go. Now I said it. There you go. It's actually refreshing to see and hear a real fan and not a weirdo who claims to read it, and it's nice to love for it. Oh, dude, practically my channel's devoted to Wonder Woman and stuff. Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciate that. And that's kind of what the channel is intended to be, because my mission statement for the channel is to get more people into comics. It needs to, because this hobby needs more people to read. So one of the things that I really love to do is I straight up, all the arguments I make on my channel and in all my content, all my podcasts, is based on what I personally have read. I'm never going to tell you that I am the number one expert on these characters. Arguably, there is none except for like maybe the creator of these characters. But what we can only like testify, I guess, to what we have read specifically. So that's why like I don't like Lois, because I've only read I've read stories that portray her maybe in a negative light, but I'm not really a fan. And when she's portrayed more positively, it doesn't do much to convince me. But my point is, it's based really on what I think. And then Sam Mystery says, I got so bummed out on Batman Who Laughs, he's burned out. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, why are you in this book? You have no reason to be here. That's the thing about DC. They take one character that's like super good, and then they just hammer it into the ground. And I'm like, stop it. And then NJ430 says, out of the Wonder Woman events, I think Gigantic needs more push right now. Stop treating her as a big jobber and actually make her a threat. Major power boost. Also, I love Queen Clea to get back. So, yeah, great points. Another villain that I think needs to be used more is Grail, because here's the cool part about Grail. And I said this on a video I put out about my favorite Wonder Woman villains. Grail is Wonder Woman's reverse Flash. What I mean by that is she is essentially a dark reflection of Diana. She is like she's essentially that's what I mean. The same way that like Zod is like evil Superman, Reverse Flash is evil Barry, Grail is evil Wonder Woman. It's kind of that sense. But all those villains need more of a push. So it says, my channel is niche. I talk about pulp serials and heroes from the Gold Age to Copper Age. Only modern books I read. The time my favorites are Robin Fuse were. If I can help in any way, let me know. That's great. Yeah, Golden Age comics need a lot more attention, 100%, because a lot of what we take for granted nowadays with like modern comics, don't exist without the Golden Age. The Golden Age you kind of need. That's why, again, a lot of the stuff that I cover is a lot of the stuff that I like, at least base my arguments around, is Golden Age. By the way, if you guys want some really solid Golden Age comics, actually, so DC started putting out these like DC Finest trades, which is essentially the same thing as Marvel's Epic Collection, but for DC. And this one collects like the first 25 to like 30 issues of Action Comics. So these are really good. How do you feel about John Byrne's Superman? Is it a staple of Superman lore? No, it's not. There are some parts of it that I like. Let me put it to that way. I think there are a few things that I really don't like about this, about John Byrne's Superman. Chief among it is it's intended to like character assassinate Krypton, and I find that vaguely xenophobic, because in the past, John Byrne has called immigrants that want to keep their culture, their cultural heritage, ungrateful. So I'm like, kind of explains the way you write Superman. But yeah, he did really, because he was trying to Marvelize Superman. That's kind of what he was trying to do. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. Not my thing personally. That's why I love Grant Morrison's Action Comics, because what Grant did. So what the new 52 Superman literally is Golden Age Superman, but you pluck him out of time and just de-age him a little bit, drop him in modern times. That's who new 52 Superman is. That's why he's like my favorite version of the character, because he's always like been like that more champion of the oppressed, like version of Superman. That's what I really, really, really dig about that. But yeah, John Byrne, he didn't really like stick with me. I didn't dig his Wonder Woman run. I did not dig a lot of his Superman run, but I mean, I don't want to discount the legacy he had in the character, though. No, Superman can move planets. He took Atlas's place, holding up Earth and heavens. You can't nerf that. Yeah, I know, but again, that's what Byrne did. And I'm like, well, I understand partially why you want to nerf him a little bit, because to a certain degree, you kind of have to nerf him, because otherwise, what challenge is going to be presented? I mean, remember in the Golden Age, Byrne was epic on X-Men and Fantastic Four. Yep, there you go. That works. I'm in the process of reading Chris Claremont's X-Men for the first time, and yeah, he's solid in that. So I'm fine with that. See, again, that's the thing. It's do I think Byrne is a horrible creative? Not necessarily. I just think he's on the wrong book. Same thing with Tom King. He's on the wrong book. That's something that I notice. A lot of creatives, when people hate their runs on certain characters, what that can be boiled down to, it's a mismatch of creative to character. You could have Bendis on Superman. Yes, normally he who must not be named, but I'm going to suspend it for the purpose of the stream. When you have Bendis on Superman, that was not a proper match of a character. Now again, I mean, I get that was part of his contract. He wanted total control of a Superman, but ignoring that part, I'm saying is that Bendis works great when he's doing street level. I think he would have done great in the Bat world. And plus, everyone loves his Batman book when they did that. So I was like, okay, you could have done that a little bit better there. Tom King's in the wrong company. Yeah, I think the thing about it. And yes, he could write horror, but the thing about King is he himself has said he's a Marvel writer who writes for DC, and he likes to bring characters down and humanize them essentially. But his version of humanize them means giving them severe mental problems. So that's kind of confusing and concerning. But I think I think he should go back to Marvel. Honestly, I think he would be much better off as a creative if he just went to Marvel, because that's Marvel's and that's Marvel as compared to DC, because DC is more of the gods amongst men. The reason why I always gravitated more toward DC than Marvel. Don't get me wrong, I still like Marvel. Obviously, I have Marvel books, but the reason why I went more toward DC is because I've always been a fan of Greek mythology and all that stuff. And DC is the one that really went full tilt into that genre while Marvel was more of the like average guy becomes superheroes, or like they're very grounded, and that's fine. I'm not bashing that. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, because honestly, I like Marvel being very different from DC. So I kind of understand why they're going that. It's just that's why I kind of go more toward DC. And that's the thing about King. If you notice, a lot of the runs that he's like renowned for, or like that sold well. I say sold well because people would say that like his Supergirl run is renowned, but it didn't sell well. It was in the dollar bin before it was announced a DC movie. But anyway, it's like he like brings these characters down to earth. Salmon says, I can really see King writing Moon Knight for some reason. Well, Moon Knight has a distinct mental health like theme, and that's something that King likes to weigh into with superheroes. So yeah, I think you could do that. Plus, he can apply a lot of his Batman stuff to Moon Knight, and I think he would probably have a little more success with Moon Knight. King should just write Bucky or Shield characters. True that. He could also write more spy characters, because that's the other thing he's known for. One of the things that really got him renowned at DC was the Grayson series, when Nightwing stopped being a Nightwing and became a spy. Obviously, being from the CIA, his experience kind of helped him with that. So I honestly think that if he should go back to Marvel and do that, or go back to like write like more Argus books, or even, as he clearly wants to, write a Steve Trevor book. There you go. Then you can write whatever you want. You can worship him to your heart's content, but don't sully Wonder Woman to do it. But that's kind of my ongoing rant about the major crapshoot that is that run. So that's kind of where I stand on that. What about you guys? What else do you guys want to know about comics and Comics League and Superman and Batman and such? Let me know, because that's what this channel is here for, to help everyone find new books that they'll love, new characters that they can really jump into and enjoy. Because the way I've always told people, when people say that like comics suck, there's no good comics. No, you're just not searching hard enough. Do you think Tom King even knows that Diana has super speed, the speed of Hermes? Because I don't. See, here's the thing. He doesn't even know that like Diana has the wisdom of Athena, because in the next run after the Sovereign, she is going to team up with Batman to solve a murder mystery. I'm like, she has the wisdom of Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war and battle strategy. Pride Tom thinks, how do you feel about Superman Up and Away? From what I've heard, I've read summaries of it. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty good. Simon says, Jeff Johns did so much for DC revitalized. Yes, exactly. I really like Jeff Johns was like the first writer that I really got into, because when I got fully into comics, it was around the time of the New 52, and obviously he was writing Justice League. So I got like all the books for Justice League and Justice League of America. Really dig that. I have the Omnibuy on my shelf and a few of the trades on my other shelf. And obviously, I kept hearing about his Green Lantern run. So I read that, and that's what made me a major Green Lantern fan. And yeah, I'm just starting JSA. It's one of those things where if Jeff Johns writes anything, I'll pick it up, which is why I back like a lot of Ghost Machine books that have his name on it. So I'm like, yeah, okay. Pride says, I'm reading Earth 1 Superman and loving it. Yep, that's a good one. On Monday, I'm releasing a review where like my friend Britt and I review Superman Earth 1 and Wonder Woman Earth 1. Max says, which cheetah do you prefer, Priscilla Rich or Barbara Minerva? Barbara, but I don't like how people ship her with Diana. But yeah, definitely Barbara, because it's more of, I like the villain dynamic of, you used to be my best friend, but now you want to kill me. Yes, that's right. Minerva wants to kill. It's a Brightest Day. And Blackest Night are the greatest DC stories I've ever read. That was an event. Yeah, Blackest Night was dope. Hey, what's up, Tevia? Yeah, Blackest Night was amazing as a DC. It is a solid DC story for Green Lantern fans. It's one of those rare stories where I'm like, I really wish DC would do more of like these events. But then again, it's because Jeff Johns was running this stuff, like was doing this stuff, like was the chief architect of like Green Lantern stuff. So I really dug that. It was really, really interesting there. And to tell you, I'm doing this solo because no one showed up. So I'm like, okay, there you go. So we're kind of turning this into like a little bit of a Q&A session here. But so what else? So what other questions do you guys have? What other topic would you like to discuss before we wrap up? And Kyle Rayner was finally getting his due instead of being another. Yeah, that's the thing that I liked about the Jeff Johns run is he treated each Green Lantern as like their own thing and not like because the problem with having multiples with a mantle is that they become like blank, but like. In other words, it's like they all be in the case of the Green Lanterns, the human Green Lanterns, they become like Hal Jordan, but an a-hole in the case of like Guy Gardner. Where in with John's Green Lanterns, I think he did a good job of separating them, particularly when you add in like Jessica Cruz, who's personally she and Hal are like tied as my favorite Green Lanterns, because when you add in like the fact that she was like agoraphobic, and to quote like her in one of her runs, she goes, I'm supposed to be this like brave superhero that overcomes fear, but I'm too afraid to leave my own house. And I'm like, that is compelling storytelling, and it's a way of like giving her more pathos. In other words, what about good Aquaman books? I'm reading Aquaman's good so far. Read Jeff Johns' Aquaman from the New 52, and Jeremy Adams launched a good Aquaman book that just got relaunched. It's pretty dope. I'll get the cover actually so you guys can see that right here, which I'm gonna read and review for the channel. It's gonna be really fun. And then Salmon's Mystery says, how do you feel about Giffen and Bisley Lobo versus the newer version? Personally, I'm not that much of a Lobo reader, but in terms of like which version I prefer, I kind of like the newer version, but that's just because it's the version that like I was reading. So it's like, that's why I have a little bit more affinity to it. But I acknowledge that like the other one did a lot of great stuff for the legacy of the character. So that's kind of my like position on that. And it leads to that. But so other questions you guys have before I stream? So in terms of like what other like comics, what other comic book movies would you like to see? But it's all satire and parody, fun stuff. Yep, that's cool. You know what? I'll check that out. I'll definitely check that out. Thank you for suggesting that. See, that's one of the reasons why I love doing live streams, because you guys teach me a lot of stuff about comics that I didn't know. NJ says Cheetah is a much better. Nope. I'm gonna tell you that right there. Nope. Because here's the problem with that. DC is never going to, here's why DC is not going to put her with Cheetah ever. Because the minute DC acknowledges Wonder Woman as bi, they can't market her in like a lot of foreign countries. That's the business reason why they won't do that. Then they can't market Wonder Woman being with a murderous furry. So they kind of can't do that. I see what you're going with that, and that's fine if you personally ship them. I can't. I personally believe she belongs with Superman. Speaking of comics, any indie books you've read recently? That's a good question. Well, I've read Spawn, obviously. I picked up something actually really cool when I was at my comic book store. I saw this on the shelf, and you know what? The cover kind of interested me. So I'm trying to pull it up. All right. This is called, and this is coming from, I'm trying to get the publisher's name here. This is coming from Magma Comics. It's called Rome Eternal. And it seems to be like a book about like the futuristic Roman Empire. And when I checked this out and I flipped through it, I'm checking this out. And I'm like, as a fan of like historical, like ancient warfare and stuff, yeah, when I was reading this, I was like, this may be something I put on my pull list, because I'm sorry, this just looks incredible like that. I'm going to find a good page to show off so I can like show this. Actually, here's a good one. Hang on. Like, look at that. Like, that is just so cool. When I was checking this out, I'm like, yeah, I kind of can't like not take that. I think that is like really cool. Plus, I also read like a lot of Spawn per month, so that's kind of me. How is the Lobo cancellation comic? I've heard some people saying it was good. I haven't read that, but I'll check that out. But yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it because my voice is about to die and I have a show later. But thank you everyone for showing up, and Sandman and NJ and Pride. I'm glad you guys found the channel. I hope you guys stick around. And so for what you guys can expect from the channel in the future. So on Monday, Britt and I are releasing another episode of Super Wonder Legacy where we review Superman Earth 1 and Wonder Woman Earth 1. Then for Wonder Woman Wednesday, I'm going to give a tour of my Wonder Woman comics and collection. Thanks for an awesome show. Sub to you. Oh, thank you, dude. I really appreciate that. And I hope to see you in the chat more. And yeah, so and next week's movie night, we're going to be doing the Future Avengers movie with all the young Avengers. That's a Taladia Plays pick. But stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane, and Steve Trevor, Steve Never. She belongs to General Zod. He belongs 6 feet in the ground. Zois and Max about for life. I will see you later. Bye-bye.